even though Amelia has her own room. For 6 months since my granddaughter Amelia moved in, I often caught her doing homework in the bathroom. Despite feeling distant from her, our daily conversations were stilted, and I spent my days in quiet frustration. When I asked Carol, Amelia's mother, about it, she dismissed it, saying Amelia could concentrate better in the bathroom, leaving me worried. On top of that, my son and his wife were rarely home due to frequent overseas business trips. It was essentially just Amelia and me living together. Wanting to become closer to my granddaughter, I tried asking her various questions, starting with safe topics like, "Do you enjoy school?" "It's okay." "Which subject do you like best?" "They're all the same." The conversation was so monotonous that I struggled to think of what to ask next. Though Amelia was naturally shy, it was unusual for conversations to be this difficult. Just as I was starting to feel anxious about our inability to bridge the gap, my son and his wife departed for another overseas trip. As if she had been waiting for us to be alone, Amelia looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Grandma, do you have a minute?" Actually, She took my hand and led me to Carol's room. Once inside, she opened one of the many stacked cardboard boxes and showed me its contents. "I'm Deborah, and I turned 64 this year. Having recently lost my beloved husband in an accident, I felt an overwhelming loneliness that constricted my chest. Just last year, I was enjoying the Christmas holidays, laughing together with my husband like all the other people passing by, but now I'm all alone." Readjusting my seemingly heavy shopping bags despite not buying much, I hurried home. "I'm home, oh right, there's no one here." My words dissolved into the air like vapor. While robotically putting away the groceries, I suddenly realized I hadn't been cooking much since my husband passed away. What should I make for dinner? As I was muttering to myself, the house phone rang. I quickly picked up the receiver. It was my son Ted on the line. "If you're calling about Dad's funeral, it's already over." I had of course informed Ted about his father's death, but he said he couldn't attend the funeral due to work. I tried to come back, but the weather was bad, the flights were cancelled. From Ted's mumbling, I sensed he had something to discuss. "So, what's up today? Can I move back home?" I was a bit surprised that Ted would return to our house after becoming a working adult. Just as I was about to express my consent, thinking it would be better than living alone, Ted made an even more surprising announcement. "Actually, I got married while I was away on business." Then, taking a deep breath, Ted rushed out his words all at once. "She has a child. Still in elementary school and needs constant attention, but I've been leaving all the child rearing to my wife, so I was hoping you could help out." Since I like children, although it was sudden, I was genuinely happy about having a grandchild. My wife's name is Carol, and the child is Amelia. Carol works in sales and travels internationally a lot. As a housewife, I found the image of a woman traveling the world for sales work quite impressive. "What kind of child is Amelia?" "She's in 2nd grade, serious and well-behaved." "When will you move in?" "Oh, you're okay with it." Ted let out a surprised yelp, apparently not expecting my ready acceptance. "Of course. I'd be happy to have more liveliness in the house." Though Ted hung up rather abruptly, I felt relieved that I wouldn't have to experience loneliness anymore. Time flew by as I cleaned the house and bought necessary items, and before I knew it, the day my son's family would arrive was approaching. While I was trying to figure out how to set up Amelia's room, I wanted to ask Ted various questions, but couldn't get through to him. There had been no word from Ted since his phone call. Though worried, the day finally arrived when Ted and his family would come to our house. Not knowing what time they would arrive, I was restless all day. Just as I finished cleaning every corner of the house, the doorbell rang. Checking the intercom screen, I saw Ted and his family. When I opened the door, I met eyes with Ted, who was awkwardly scratching his cheek. "Welcome. I was worried because I called several times but you never answered." "Sorry, I was busy. Since we'll be living together, you need to keep in touch even when you're busy." At my words, Ted turned to the beautiful woman and quiet child standing next to him. "Let me introduce you. This is my wife Carol and daughter Amelia. Nice to meet you both. I've been looking forward to living together." Carol was so beautiful that even I, as a woman, was impressed, and she spoke with a clear voice like a news anchor. "Nice to meet you, Deborah. Looking forward to living together." In contrast to Carol's energetic impression, Amelia was quiet. However, she greeted me properly, and I thought she was indeed well-mannered as Ted had said. After showing them to their rooms, the moving company's truck arrived. As boxes were unloaded from the truck, most of them were carried into Carol's room. Though I tried to help with the numerous boxes, they refused, saying they felt bad about moving in without proper notice. Thinking it would be wrong to interfere too much with their privacy, I watched from a distance for several dozen minutes until all the boxes were brought in and the movers left. Ted, who had calmed down a bit, looked at my husband's photo and said, "It was so sudden, about Dad. I heard he sacrificed himself to save a child who was about to be hit by a truck that ran a red light. That's just like Dad." "Yes. I heard the child survived, and the parents were very grateful. As a father myself, I need to cherish Amelia too." Despite being busy with work, Ted seemed concerned about not being able to spend much time with his daughter. As we were talking, Amelia seemed to have finished organizing her things, and was quietly standing in the corner of the living room. Then Ted left the room to organize his belongings. "Amelia, are you hungry?" "No, I'm fine." Seeing my granddaughter's oddly mature attitude, I thought she must be shy. "Then Amelia, would you like to have tea with me?" It might take time to get close to Amelia. While preparing tea, hoping to become a little closer, I asked, "What do you like, Amelia?" "Nothing in particular." "It could be anything, like food." "Nothing." Her unexpected reluctance to talk left me at a loss. As I was struggling to find a topic, Ted, who had apparently finished unpacking quickly, returned to the living room. "Since we're always traveling abroad, we don't have much stuff, so it was quick to unpack," Ted said with a laugh, and I could imagine how busy their life must have been. "Good work. I'd like to start preparing dinner. Does anyone have any food preferences?" "I can eat anything," Ted said, and Amelia silently nodded in agreement. I decided to make pasta for dinner. Just as the pasta was cooked and I was mixing it with the sauce, Carol came into the living room. "Something smells good. Welcome back. The pasta just finished cooking." Thank you. I'm so happy. You must have it tough too. Yes, the company is on the verge of bankruptcy after a failed business venture. I'm traveling around because the salary is low. Hearing about her difficult situation, my heart ached, and I decided to support Carol as much as I could. Please rely on me whenever you need to. Carol nodded with a smile. This is how our life together began. However, both Carol and Ted were away from home more often than expected, and if I hadn't been there, Amelia would surely have felt very lonely. Since we're not blood related, I need to be careful while taking care of her, but I sympathize with my granddaughter's situation. I need to maintain an appropriate distance from Amelia while being careful not to intrude too forcefully into her heart. After 6 months of carefully approaching her this way, I noticed that Amelia often studied in the bathroom. Even though Amelia has her own room. Today too, when she came out of the bathroom with her study materials, I quickly asked, "Amelia, why do you study in the bathroom? Your room is much more spacious." However, she wouldn't answer and remained silent, looking down. "You can tell me anything." Though I spoke gently while making eye contact, Amelia pressed her lips together tightly and shook her head. "Let me know when you want to talk about it." She ended up leaving quickly for her room without saying anything. I'll ask Carol when she comes home today. Since starting to live together, Ted and his family had become better at keeping in touch. Ted was scheduled to return next week, and Carol was due back from her business trip today. As scheduled, Carol returned home in the evening. "I'm home." Carol entered the house carrying a large suitcase. Work went well this time. She was humming while unpacking, clearly in a good mood. Thinking she must be quite capable at her job, I waited for her to settle in. When she came to the kitchen to get a drink, I quickly asked about Amelia. "Carol, I notice Amelia often studies in the bathroom. Do you know why?" I asked Amelia about that before, and she said she can concentrate better there. Is that so? Maybe she likes small spaces. She says it's where outside noise is most muffled. So don't worry about it. True, the bathroom is quiet, and since we keep it clean, it might be a good environment for concentration. Though half convinced, I decided not to pursue the matter further. The next night, Carol left again, saying she had another business trip. They're hardly ever home. It's essentially just Amelia and me living together. Wanting to become closer to Amelia, I tried asking her various questions, starting with safe topics like, "Do you enjoy school?" "It's okay." "Which subject do you like best?" "They're all the same." The conversation was so monotonous that I struggled to think of what to ask next. Though she was naturally shy, it was unusual for conversations to be this difficult. Thinking I should avoid school topics, I tried changing my approach. "What do you usually do on your days off?" "Homework." Amelia maintained a dark expression and stiff tone throughout. Feeling that asking more questions might make her dislike me, I dropped my shoulders. "You're working very hard. Take it easy while I prepare dinner." At my words, she seemed slightly relieved and gave a small bow before returning to her room. What should I do? As I was heading to the kitchen holding my head, I noticed the bathroom door was locked. I wonder if she needed to use the bathroom. If so, That would explain her curt attitude. I decided to try talking to her again when the timing was right. From the next day, I watched for opportunities to talk to her and even took her shopping on holidays. Meat is on sale today. Shall we have steak for lunch? Do you like steak, Amelia? Yes. Though Amelia's attitude hadn't changed much, I was starting to read her expressions better. Her face had tensed slightly when I mentioned steak. But I'd like some macaroni and cheese too, maybe we should have that instead. Yes. This time I got it right, as Amelia nodded with an animated voice. Through such casual interactions, I thought we were gradually growing closer, when one day, we received a phone call at home. Hello, this is Alex, Amelia's homeroom teacher. Am I speaking with Amelia's family? Yes, I'm her grandmother. This was the first time receiving a call from school, so I became anxious. Amelia has developed a high fever and has been delirious, but unfortunately the school nurse is absent. What? I'll head to the school right away. Interrupting the teacher's words, I quickly got ready and rushed out of the house. Arriving at school and being guided to the nurse's office, I hurried to Amelia's side. Amelia. It's Grandma. Can you understand me? My granddaughter looked at me with teary eyes while breathing heavily. Grandma. Don't push yourself, I'm here with you, so rest easy. I wiped Amelia's sweat with the towel I had brought. You're sweating so much. Do you think you can drink something? I inserted a straw into a bottle of drink and watched her condition. Grandma, my throat is dry. As she managed to speak haltingly, I strongly felt in my heart that I must help her. I supported Amelia's head as she slowly tried to sit up and held the straw to her lips. She gradually sipped the drink, managing to consume about half the bottle before lying back down on the bed. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I smiled gently while stroking her head. Though Amelia had been suffering for a while, she gradually stabilized as I continued to care for her diligently. Just then, her homeroom teacher came to check on her, so I asked him to arrange for a taxi. Soon after being notified that the taxi had arrived, I carefully supported my granddaughter as we headed home. Amelia, are you okay? I kept checking on Amelia as we slowly entered the house at her pace. Her room was on the second floor. Thinking it would be too tough for her to climb the stairs, I had her rest in a room on the first floor. Afterwards, I stayed by her side, making chicken soup and wiping her face with a damp towel. Grandma, thank you. It's nothing. I'll always be here, so don't worry. Around the time Amelia's fever started to come down, Ted returned home. Is Amelia okay? Welcome back. She's resting quietly now. That's good. Looks like I left everything to you at a difficult time. It's fine. This is exactly when I'm needed. Ted, looking relieved, spread out on the desk the medicine and tea he had bought for Amelia. By the way, where's Carol? Actually, we haven't heard from her. This trip seems to be far away, maybe the reception is bad. Another business trip. She seems busier than me. I'm worried about Carol too. Though I felt some distrust about Carol being unreachable during her continuous business trips, Amelia was more important to me. A few days later, when Carol suddenly returned without any prior contact, Amelia had completely recovered. In contrast to the deepening bond between Amelia and me, Carol showed no signs of concern for Amelia. "Carol, I'd like to talk about Amelia." "I'm sorry. I've been suddenly called to the office. Could we discuss this another time?" "I'm worried about Amelia. While you were away, she's been studying in the bathroom every day, whether it's hot or cold. Something's clearly wrong. That just means she finds the bathroom comfortable. Please don't worry about it. She stays cooped up there without even air conditioning. She must be so focused on studying that she doesn't notice the heat or cold. I have to go now." Her words were unthinkable for a parent, and I felt chilled by her coldness. Carol slipped past me in my dumbfounded state and left the house. A few days later, both Ted and Carol left for overseas business trips again, leaving me alone with Amelia. "Grandma, do you have a minute?" As if she had been waiting for us to be alone, Amelia looked me straight in the eyes and spoke appealingly. "Actually, Saying this, she took my hand and led me to Carol's room. Once inside, she opened one of the many stacked cardboard boxes and showed me its contents. "I know about it. About Mom's affairs. These are things she bought to camouflage the matching items she bought with her lovers during trips." Shocked by these words, I could only stare with wide eyes. However, it was too early to be surprised, as Amelia next placed her hand on Carol's computer. She turned it on, waited for it to boot up, and clicked on a file that prompted for a password. I don't really want to look, but... The file contained many photos of Carol, but there was always a man next to her. There are so many. Looking closer, the men next to her kept changing. The dates showed multiple entries from days when Carol had said she was on business trips. Before, I wanted to look something up and borrowed Mom's computer. Amelia, being in elementary school, didn't have a smartphone. She always used Carol's computer for research. I have a folder where I save my data, but once I accidentally saved it in a different folder. While scrolling through the photos, Amelia explained the situation. So I was opening files one by one looking for my data, and found this file was the only one locked. Looking at Carol's smiling face in the photos, she continued in a dark tone. I was curious and tried Mom's birthday as the password, and it opened. After closing the file and shutting down the computer, she took a deep breath. So when I confronted Mom about the affairs, she threatened me, saying if Dad and Grandma found out, I would be thrown out too. How terrible. I felt anger rising within me toward Carol. So she said if I pretended not to see the affairs, I wouldn't be thrown out, and she'd give me souvenirs to keep quiet. I can't believe she tried to buy your silence with souvenirs meant to cover up her affairs. She forcefully put several in my room too, and every time I see them, I can't bear being reminded that Mom is having affairs. As she spoke, tears began flowing from Amelia's eyes. That's why I didn't want to be in my room, and I had no choice but to study in the bathroom. You didn't want to study in the bathroom, did you? It was so painful, and I wanted to tell Dad and Grandma all along, but Mom insisted I absolutely couldn't tell anyone, so I couldn't say anything. Come to think of it, I realized I'd rarely seen Carol and Amelia talking together happily. Watching Mom made me scared of adults, and I couldn't trust anyone. But I thought I could tell you, Grandma. Indeed, while she hardly responded when I talked to her before, I could feel her opening up to me since that day. Amelia said in a strained voice, "I'm sorry for keeping quiet until now. I guess an unlovable granddaughter who keeps secrets doesn't deserve to stay in this house. Of course we won't throw you out." Having reached my peak of anger, I hugged Amelia and immediately sent an email to Ted. He called right away. "Mom, is what you wrote in the email true?" His voice was so rushed that his anxiety was evident. "Yes," Amelia told me, and I saw it myself. "This is an emergency. I'll tell the company and return home right away." Amelia looked worried as she listened to my phone conversation with Ted. "It's all right. No matter what happens, I'll protect you." Ted really did return immediately. As soon as he got home and saw the evidence of Carol's affairs, he was furious. "We'll confront Carol as soon as she gets back." I had never seen my son show such anger before. I nodded at Ted's words, and we waited for Carol's return. A few days later, that day finally came. "Carol, we need to talk about something important," Ted said the moment Carol returned home. "What's this all of a sudden?" "I just got back and I'm tired." "So you've been having affairs? What are you talking about?" Carol was clearly pretending not to know, with an obviously displeased attitude. "I saw the photos of you with men." "Huh? You looked through my computer without permission." Carol seemed desperate to deflect attention from the undeniable facts. "You locked the file because you didn't want anyone to see it, right? So it was Amelia. How dare you tell them?" Carol finally lost control and tried to lunge at Amelia, but Ted restrained her. Was this who Carol really was? What was the person I'd been seeing until now? "Let me go. You'll regret telling them." With Ted holding her firmly, limiting her movement, Carol resorted to verbal abuse. "You're my accomplice, so you'll be thrown out too. Amelia has done nothing wrong." I stood in front of Amelia protectively. "Carol, I called your company to confirm, and the story about being nearly bankrupt was a lie too, wasn't it? I haven't done anything wrong. Stop making false accusations." Though Carol stubbornly refused to admit her wrongdoing, she was clearly at her limit. "Your supervisor told me your salary was reduced because you'd caused problems with male relationships even within the company. Of course you'll have to pay damages, Carol, not just the men you had affairs with." Finally, Carol stopped resisting and hung her head dejectedly. Silence fell over the room. "You've all made me feel sick. I'm going to the hospital later." After exchanging glances with me, Ted released Carol. She walked back to her room like a soul leaving its body. Carol apparently did go to the hospital afterward. It turned out she had contracted a troublesome disease while overseas recently and needed to focus on treatment. Her reckless lifestyle caught up with her. I need to contact her company too. Ted, who received the call from the hospital, said he informed Carol's company about the situation. As a result, her reputation at work deteriorated further, and after causing trouble with the male employees she'd had affairs with who learned about her disease, she was forced to resign. Finally, we can have some peace. Dad, thank you. It's only natural. Ted spoke these words firmly, as if affirming them to himself. Just as we were beginning to regain our normal daily life after the turmoil, Ted received a phone call. Upon answering, he immediately frowned and said, "Don't be ridiculous. We've cut ties with you, and this is your own problem," before forcefully hanging up. I heard him muttering about needing to change his phone number. What happened? It was Carol. She said she has no money after paying damages and asked for help. How selfish. Exactly. She said the men she had affairs with are demanding money too. She brought this on herself. Apparently, Carol tried to work in nightlife establishments, making use of her beauty. Despite her enviable confidence, she couldn't find work due to her illness and was living in poverty. After all Amelia has suffered, Carol deserves what she's getting. Amelia was truly amazing for enduring everything alone. As I was lost in thought, Ted said with straightforward eyes, "I'll work hard to make sure Amelia never has to suffer like this again." It seems this incident made Ted want to rebuild his relationship with his daughter, and I heard he requested a transfer to a domestic department. With more time at home, he began to be there for Amelia, and their parent-child bond seemed to deepen. Recently, Amelia's smiles have increased. "Amelia, is there anywhere you'd like to go?" "I want to go to the aquarium." "Well, since Ted is off today, why don't the three of us go?" "Yay! I love you, Grandma." She jumped up and down, smiling happily. Seeing my granddaughter's smile, I felt a warmth spreading in my heart. "I love you too, sweetheart. I'll protect this smile forever." Making this promise in my heart, I took Amelia's hand and started walking.